I mean, just
I
for
think
that
it's got to
shot.
be one of those there are no stupid ideas kind of places where it's like, okay, we've got this crazy thing we need to do. Does anyone have any crazy idea how we could do this? And then, you just spitball absolutely anything you can think of until something sticks.
No, yeah, that's and the writer said they did that too. So Spielberg, when Spielberg was saying something about what was the thing about the not the proctologist? Remember when Roger was like, yeah, my uncle had that. It was the not a proctologist thing, not an enema, but he was talking about his uncle got tested for something. But that was just the writers one day. Spielberg's
Yeah.
like, we need to make this. This is boring if they just talk about this. Like what is like this is if we just talk about this, it's gonna be boring. So what can we do? And then the guys were like, oh, okay, let's just talk about doing a colonoscopy.
Uh,
And then they're like, yeah, my uncle had that. And they're like, no. And then Spielberg goes, yes, let's do it. So they just threw out stupid, like not stupid stuff, of course, but they just threw out things, and then people are like, yes. But you know what? I think you can do that when they brought in who they brought in. I mean, if you look at Dean Cundey, if you look at all the talent in this film, when one of them throws out a dumb idea, it's going to be pretty smart.
yeah, it's probably something that, wouldn't fly in every environment, and you might not get to try because, it might take 6 weeks to set up the shot, and it might take, however much money to rig it. But in this, particularly in this environment where, they are doing something crazy, I think they just got to do it.
Oh gosh, just figuring it out like that. I love listening to the commentaries on Gremlins. I loved listening to like when we did Back to the Future. I read a book for that movie, but I just
Yeah,
love how.
I read the same book. It's
And we probably talked
fascinating.
about 3 pages of it, but I do
Yeah.
love that. I like reading about these really groundbreaking films, whether it's Jurassic Park or basically anything by Cameron. When you read about, I love reading about Robert Rodriguez and how he made El Mariachi and Kevin Smith how he made Clerks. I just think it's almost I don't think, I don't have $150 million and I'm not backed by Disney, but just hearing the workarounds of how they made putting the stages off the ground or building an extra 60 feet of dolly track or just building a rig that has a
Well,
suction cup to
look at
smash plates.
Lord of the Rings, like just using forced perspective everywhere to get like the, you know, Gandalf big and the Hobbit small, like little just camera tricks like that don't really cost anything, but they're just good craft.
Exactly. That's a great word. Good craft. And yeah, I think this movie just had good craft all over it, which doesn't sound great, but it I don't know. It's just such an exciting movie. And it's funny. I just kept diving into more documentaries about this movie because there's so much out there. You keep picking movies that I kind of like that require a lot of research, but I feel like I've learned a lot while looking into them. It's pretty neat.
I seem to just, is this our third Zemeckis film at this point that we've
Yeah.
discussed? We seem to talk quite a bit about Zemeckis.
Death Becomes Her,
Um,
Back to the
Back to
Future,
the
and now
Future in
this.
this.
Yeah. I've also covered used cars. I don't think I've done too much other Zemeckis movies, which I love used cars.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen that one.
You got good old Kurt Russell on his Zemeckis
Oh,
movie.
nice.
Yeah, oh man, it's worth watching. It's a lot of fun if you haven't watched it. I wouldn't say that it's. I mean, it doesn't push the boundaries of cinema, but it's good enough to. I mean, actually, what are your favorite Zemeckis movies? We've covered three. I mean, what like? Do you like a lot of his recent stuff? Like, do you like his
Um,
Polar Express? Do you like
Polar
stuff like
Express is
that?
a bit
Beowulf?
weird. Beowulf. No, I think the ones that would be my favorite. Back to the Future, obviously, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. I would put this one up there because I've got a big old soft spot for this movie. I would say Forrest Gump. Enjoy that one.
What Lies
Um,
Beneath is
not.
is nice and wicked. I like that movie.
Um, I quite enjoyed Romancing the Stone. That's that's a good like kind of adventure movie. Kind of in the mold of it's almost like not quite Indiana Jones, but Indiana Jones-ish. Like you've got kind of this kind of period adventure almost.
hmm Rakish hero, going on and
Yeah,
hunting for treasure. Just give me any of those movies and I'll watch them. I'll watch any treasure movie. I haven't watched Uncharted yet, but give me any of those.
I've heard mixed things about Uncharted. I don't think I can touch it because, if I want my Uncharted fix, I'll just turn on the PlayStation and just play it.
I'll rent it. I heard it's fine. And so when I hear a movie's fine, so like I know like people what's interesting? I've heard nobody be like it's awesome, and I've heard no one say it sucks. So then I just know I'm gonna rent it. Unless I have to write a review for it, of course.
I will wait for it to turn up on whichever streaming platform that I pay for that it turns up on.
I do feel I don't feel bad for Zemeckis, but I mean, if you look at his recent run, he 2004 he did Polar Express, 2007 he did Beowulf, and then he did Christmas Carol. He got into the mocap world there for about 5 years.
Yeah, and then he's just done Witches, which wasn't very well reviewed. I haven't actually watched that.
And he had Flight in 2012, but I mean, he did The Walk,
Flight was okay, with a little uninspired. Like, there's nothing. I think what I like about early Zemeckis is how groundbreaking everything was.
Oh yeah.
Like looking at Back to the Future, looking at looking at Death Becomes Her, even going as far as Forrest Gump, like how the visual effects were done there, where they make it look like Gary Sinise has no legs, for example. Some of the VFX in there and like the techniques they used to splice historical footage with Tom Hanks together. Like there was some, for a kind of story-driven movie, there was actually quite a lot of VFX going on in the background in that movie. And, that's kind of where he peaked. And since then, as technology's moved on, there's less room for this innovation, and it's more just playing with tools that perhaps other filmmakers are using better or differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great point. He just, I don't know, he fell, I don't know. I don't think he ever conquered Christmas Carol, Beowulf, or Polar Express. So, but he was on a run before he did that too. He did Contact, What Lies Beneath, and Castaway.
I like Contact.
Contact's legit.
Underrated.
For sure. And then he got moved into that. And then I guess lately The Walk. I mean, just go watch a documentary. It's so much better. And then he did Allied, Welcome to Marlin, and The Witches. So, I'd love for him to get a bounce back, but I don't know. I think he's done a lot. It's hard to say he's done enough, but I'll keep watching his movies. But he had such a run. I mean, I do appreciate him though, because this is a guy I think who really, like you said, with Forrest Gump and with Death Becomes Her and with Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, he went out of his way to push the boundaries of filmmaking, and I think filmmaking was better for it. So, I mean, you're right. I loved how he blended in Forrest Gump the VFX, but it never felt like VFX. It felt very like, Mad Max Fury Road. Like they've just put mountains in, but you don't really notice that those are visual effects because they just look like mountains. I think
and you're just watching the road action, which is all insane.
Oh, crazy. And that won the Movies, Films, and Flicks Action Movie Tournament, by the way. It defeated the Raid 2. I voted Raid 2.
Yeah, but I saw that movie in 4D at a theater in Korea, and it was just an amazing ride. It's like the seats are moving, and there's like water spraying up at you, and there's wind blowing through, and you're just like, oh my god, this is amazing.
You did Mad Max Fury Road like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane. Great.
Have you watched the Raid 2?
I haven't.
You need to. Go back to Korea and watch it in 4K. Pay a theater. Or I guess you could do that in London. Is there 4K in London? Or not 4K? Is there like 4D in London?
I'm not sure. I think there might be one in central London somewhere.
How hygienic
I think
is
that's kind of gone by the way of
the Buffalo?
You don't really hear much about 3D anymore these days.
Good old Cameron releases Avatar. Everyone tries to do it, realizes they're not Cameron, and then they just ditch it. Yeah. I do think Resident Evil 4 did a good job with 3D because they used James Cameron's rig on that movie. So it looks cool. I'm just putting that out there.
Is Cameron using 3D for the Avatar sequels?
That's a great question. I mean, he's got to, right? Because
you would think so.
It's depending
He's
on.
He's probably revolutionized the tech now, and it's probably it'll blow everyone away again. It's like, oh my god, you'll go to the cinema, it's like, oh, we've had to install these brand new holographic projectors to fully immerse you in James Cameron's Avatar 2, and all of a sudden you're just there.
We contracted Jake Gyllenhaal from Spider-Man Far From Home and his
Yeah.
drones to give you a full-on experience. But I guess, those Avatar movies depend on immersion in the world.
Yeah.
So they would have to be 3D. And also, too, there's something, I guess we'll finish up a little bit, but there's something about Who Framed Roger Rabbit where there's nothing in it that takes you out of it. When I watch
No.
Space Jam sometimes, I do get taken out of some of the moments. I mean, I still love it. It's a great soundtrack. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit is just so seamless, and it's so, you do get immersed in that world. You do believe that, these weasels have guns, which makes me so happy.
Because there are, you can physically see the guns in the environment. It's not been digitally inserted. It's not, the gun is there. All you have to believe is that the weasel is holding it, and that's where the animators have done a fantastic job in making it look like that.
Oh, that's so cool. All right, so how about this? Before we get out of here, let's do to help promote this episode. Let's do a quick 1988 draft. So we'll draft movies from 1988. How's that sound? Before we get out of here.
Sounds good.
All right. So since you're the guest, I will let you go first.
Well, I know on movies, films, flicks, there's years of cinema tournament ongoing.
Wait, what year did you
luck
pick?
would have it, 1988 was
Yeah.
my year. So I'm quite a fan of many of the movies from this year. I think for my number one, I got to go with one of my other all-time favorite movies, which you've already mentioned earlier in this podcast, is Die Hard.
I already wrote it.
The ultimate action movie. You've got basically, every subsequent movie for 5-6 years became Die Hard in a whatever. It's like Speed. Oh, it's Die Hard on a bus. Oh, Beverly Hills Cop 3. It's Die Hard in a theme park. You've got this basically everything has to be Die Hard, and I just love it. Like I rewatch it all the time. Alan Rickman is amazing in it, and Bruce Willis. It was back when Bruce Willis actually cared.
Yep, he did care back then, didn't he? I just watched a movie called Gasoline Alley with him in it. Oof, yeah. I don't know what's going on with him, so I don't know if I want to talk too much about it because he could barely say one line at a time. I'm gonna take Willow. That's my first pick.
Oh, Willow's a good one.
Yeah, I gotta go Willow. I mean, I'm gonna lose already, but I'm taking Willow. So
Willow's a good one.
I mean, listen, this is another movie I grew up with, and it's another PG-rated movie. I mean, Warwick Davis, Val Kilmer in that movie is magnetic. The villain with his mask. I mean, the witch fight at the end was so brutal and dark and turned everyone into pigs. Burnt in my memory. Beautiful movie. So yeah, that'll be my first pick. What's your second?
I think my second, I'm going for another one from my list that I chose. Fish Called Wanda.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just such a silly, funny film. And you've got like John Cleese, you've got Jamie Lee Curtis,
Oscar-winning Kevin Kline.
It is just so well acted, and it's just so funny. I could watch that again and again and again. It's great.
Perfection. I'm gonna take They Live. Greatest fight scene of all time.
Nice.
Keith David, Roddy Piper, making you wear glasses. Free Guy, not ripped off, paid homage to They Live for sure. So yeah, They Live. That's my second pick. So you have Die Hard and Fish Called Wanda, Oscar-winning movie, a comedy.
So many like choices. I'm kind of trying to pick something a little bit more obscure. I'm going to go for.
Let me guess before you pick it.
Okay.
Heathers.
No,
Oh,
I wasn't leaning that way. I'm going more along the old, the biggest action movie star in the world at the time, Mr. Schwarzenegger, with Danny DeVito, in Twins.
Oh man, such a good movie.
Which, it's one of those delightfully silly premises that, just wouldn't get made these days. But back then it's like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger can be twins. Let's make a movie about it.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love that movie's funny, and Schwarzenegger's really good in it. So is DeVito. Good pick.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do Coming to America.
Well,
Huge movie. Great performances by Eddie Murphy. I mean, this was just gigantic movie. Coming off the heels of, Beverly Hills Cop, the gigantic Beverly Hills Cop. He had movies in between, but one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. So I'm taking Coming to America. Got to do that. What's your fourth pick?
You know, I gotta